Across the United States, crime has once again taken center stage in political debates. For many voters, the issue of safety, whether it is about violent crime in big cities, theft in suburban areas, or concerns about drugs and gangs, feels deeply personal. People want to feel secure in their homes, neighborhoods, and schools. Whenever this subject arises, one political figure appears to dominate the conversation: Donald Trump. Surveys and polls repeatedly show that when Americans are asked who they trust more on law and order, Trump and the Republican Party are placed ahead of Democrats. But this raises a critical question. Is Trump's advantage on crime built on solid reality, or is it largely a matter of public perception, amplified by media and politics? Understanding this question is key to seeing why crime could be one of the most decisive issues of the next election. The actual data on crime in America is more complex than most headlines suggest. According to FBI reports and independent research, violent crime rose during the pandemic years, but has shown some signs of decline in certain areas since then. Property crimes, such as car thefts and burglaries, remain a serious concern in several states. At the same time, some cities have invested heavily in policing and social programs, which have led to localized drops in crime rates. Yet, despite these mixed results, the majority of Americans believe crime is rising everywhere. Poll after poll shows that public opinion does not always match the statistical reality. For example, even in areas where crime has gone down, residents often report that they feel less safe than before. This disconnect between perception and reality is politically significant. In a democracy, elections are not decided by data sheets. They are decided by how people feel. And right now, many Americans feel unsafe, whether or not the numbers fully support that fear. Donald Trump has understood the power of fear and perception better than most politicians. From his very first presidential campaign in 2016, he leaned heavily on the idea that America was in decline, that crime was out of control, and that only strong leadership could restore safety. His speeches often highlight incidents of urban violence, clashes with police, or crimes committed by undocumented immigrants, linking them together to form a picture of national insecurity. The strength of Trump's narrative lies in its simplicity. Instead of lengthy policy explanations, his message boils down to a clear promise: I will restore law and order. For many voters who are already anxious, this kind of certainty feels reassuring. In addition, Trump frequently contrasts himself with Democratic mayors and governors, claiming their cities are unsafe and poorly managed. Whether this argument is fully accurate or not, it resonates with people who already feel frustrated with rising prices, housing struggles, and social unrest. By connecting these frustrations to crime, Trump positions himself as the candidate of strength and stability. Democrats face a much tougher challenge when addressing crime. On one hand, they support policies aimed at reforming the police, reducing excessive force, and addressing racial inequalities in law enforcement. These efforts appeal to progressives and communities that have historically felt mistreated by the justice system. On the other hand, many voters simply want immediate reassurance that their neighborhoods will be safe, and they see reforms as a long-term solution rather than an urgent fix. This leaves Democrats walking a difficult line. If they talk too much about reforms, they risk sounding soft on crime. If they shift too far towards stronger policing, they risk alienating their base who demand accountability and fairness. Furthermore, Democrats' messaging tends to be filled with policy details and nuanced arguments. While this may work in academic or policy circles, it does not always resonate with voters who respond more strongly to simple, emotional language. This communication gap means that even if Democrats have valid points about the complexity of crime, their message can easily be overshadowed by Trump's direct and emotionally charged rhetoric. When we look at the polls, the Republican advantage on crime becomes even clearer. In surveys across multiple states, voters consistently say they trust Republicans more to handle crime than Democrats. This trust extends even to states where crime statistics are not as alarming, which shows that perception often outweighs reality. The media contributes heavily to this perception. Local and national news often focus on violent incidents because they capture attention. A single shocking crime can dominate headlines for days, leaving viewers with the impression that such events are common, even if they are statistically rare. Social media amplifies this effect. Videos of robberies, assaults, or violent confrontations spread rapidly online, often without context or background data. For many people, these viral clips feel more real than official reports, shaping their emotions and political views. The result is that crime becomes less about numbers and more about stories. And in politics, stories are what change votes. As the 2025 election approaches, crime could prove to be one of the most decisive issues in shaping voter behavior. Trump's law and order narrative gives him a natural advantage, particularly among voters in suburban and rural areas who are more likely to see Democrats as weak on public safety. If public anxiety about crime remains high, this issue could help solidify his base and win over undecided voters who prioritize security above all else. For Democrats, the challenge is steep. They need to reassure voters that their policies can reduce crime without abandoning commitments to fairness, justice, and civil rights. This requires not only effective policies, but also clearer, stronger messaging that speaks to voters' emotions as much as to their logic. In the end, the question is simple but powerful. Will Americans cast their votes based on actual crime rates or on how unsafe they feel? If perception continues to outweigh reality, then crime may remain Donald Trump's strongest political advantage, regardless of what the statistics say.